It's good to be back. Missed you. Prayerfully, all is well. And it's amazing how time goes by and we're a little less than 2 weeks out of the fall of the year. But we're grateful for each day, for it is God's gift. Pick up in Job chapters 29 through 31, which is really, some say, the final defense of Job against his three friends of the earlier chapters. If you've noticed, there's been a cycle of three. The friends say something, Job said something. And so these last chapters, chapters 29 through 31, somewhat of a summation, but I'm not sure of that, though I'm going to say that. I may argue about that a little bit as we go further. I want to introduce this final section of final, not in the sense of chapter 42, but going through chapter 31. I want to introduce these three chapters, 29, 30, 31, mainly 29 and 30, in the next couple of sessions, and hopefully summarize it in the third week of our Bible study as we are together. Now, you're going to see, and I want you, please, would you read chapters 29 through 31. Just block out about 30 minutes and just read all three of those together. Don't forget about sentence and chapters, but just read that as one discourse. And I need you to and chronicle what you feel when you listen to him. What is he saying? What do you anticipate Job is feeling when he says some of these things? And don't gloss over it, and don't make it say what it doesn't say. Allow it to say it, meaning the text, to say what it does. Job has been let down. What Job had anticipated hadn't really happened as Job had thought things were going to happen. He was looking for the nostalgia of having a long life with good days, where God would take care of him in his latter days. That hasn't happened. We were engaged in last week's study, chapter 28, by Dr. Hudson. I don't want to thank her for that. The push to have a better understanding of wisdom. Some said that this was a poem, and I'm sure Dr. Hudson went over that. And others said it was one of the readings. But there was a call for wisdom. And I do want you to notice the references that she gave, but also Proverbs chapters 1 through 4. Give an outstanding critique on wisdom, Sophia, understanding that comes in life, or that can be lacking in one's life. And again, that was last week. So I want you to give due consideration to the same. Today, we pick up in Job chapters 29 through 31. 29 through 31. Chapter 29 of Job, these 25 verses, it's a speech about remembrance. The two words, optimum words for us for Job chapter 28 and 29. Then, chapter 29, and now, chapter 30. Those are two aspects in chapters 29 and 30. Chapter 29 of Job is about remembrance, and the optimum word is then, and I'll come back to that. Chapter 30 is about now, and as you read chapter 29 and 30, feel the mood shift. Embrace the language and the feeling of the language when you move from then, Job talks about his life, and now. And as you read that, there is almost this anticipation that what I did then doesn't seem to be paying off now. Or what happened then, the results shouldn't be what they are now. Another way, I was kind to people then, but I don't seem to be reaping the kindness now. Please, and I'll pick up some more of that over the next couple of weeks. Job is having some issues. And the optimum word for chapter 29 is remembrance. Remembrance of blessings. And remembrance of honor and justice. I will say more. Chapter 30 of Job, my word, and quibble with me, I think it's a complaint. Clear and simple. This is not the Job that we saw that, all the days of my appointed time, the Lord gives. That's what I'm not sensing when Job talks now in chapter 30. Now we find Job, the word is abasement, before outcasts. And I'll come back to that. He seems to be verbally assaulted. He seems to be talking about now the very justice that he meted out and gave in 28 and 29. He said, I'm not getting it. The very people that I help, if not in name, in circumstance. The same, can I say it like that? The same kind of people that I helped when they were down, the people that were down are now downing me. I saw just the other day, and the Lord, I thank him for examples, that going to a stoplight, and this lady was, she had her sign and all, and, I watched her body language, and when she didn't get anything out of the row of cars, she had an attitude. That lady swung around. She swung around and took her sign and was just doing her sign any old kind of way. And she was asking for help. But when she didn't get what she wanted, her attitude changed. Job doesn't seem to be getting what he wanted. And in chapter 3, Job's attitude changed. Now, I don't know how long it stayed there, but I'm just going to see. And don't go to tomorrow. But remember, then in chapter 29, now in chapter 30, we find this in Job. Job, I want to share a couple of outlines with you. Let me just outline chapter 29, and then I'm going to come to 30 and say a few more things, and then we'll come back and dissect it. But when you read chapter 29, there are three things that pretty much go on. Remember, the optimum word is then. Then is past tense. Verses 1 and 2 are an introduction. Job chapter 29, verses 1 and 2, just a basic introduction. Verses 3 through 10, and again, I'm going to come back and we're going to work through this, about remembrance of blessings and honor. Then, he's talking about then, blessings and honor, remembrance. Verses 11 through 17, remembrance of administering justice, what he did for others. Then, he's remembering in chapter 29, administering justice. And again, we'll come back through this for more detail. Then verses 18 through 24, he comes back to an earlier theme of remembrance of blessings and honor. I find it interesting that why would he come back to this when he's already mentioned this? Why do you sometimes repeat yourself to the same people, something that you said to them earlier? We'll come back. Then there's a summation. About his feelings. That's chapter 29. And again, I'm going to come back and we're going to work with each of these sections for a little bit. Chapter 30 is outlined. Do I need to do that one now, or do you want me to finish chapter 29 and then come to 30? Uh, well, let's just do 29 while we're here. Let's just do 29, and then allow me to piggyback and pick back up. Remember, the optimum word for chapter 29 is then. Notice how he starts off. Verse 1 is very simple. Job again took up his discourse. That means that it took up that chapter 28, they argue, is part of this closing statement by Job. He took up this discourse. You see it? Notice the words. Oh, that I were in the months of old, as in the days when God watched over me. Let that marinate. What situation you oftentimes say, oh, you ever say, oh my goodness? Oh, for sure not. Why do you say oh? Either O or OH. I don't know. Pick whichever one you want. They both are O. When you're feeling something, you don't try to say this is OHO or that's OO. Do you? Come on, be fair with me. You don't worry about the grammar. You just say, oh my goodness. Oh my. Oh for sure. Oh no. Oh no. That can't be. Oh no. And you generally just don't say, oh, you say, oh no. To be sure not. And if you have goodness, you will say, oh my goodness. That's the mood you gotta hear. Notice what he says. Some of the texts will translate that word months into days. Oh, that I were in the days, months of old. That gives you an introit that this has been going on with Job for more than 30 days. And we had, I think this is a wonderful introit here because we often wondered, how long did this go on with Job? This didn't happen. Job didn't get it resolved in 60 days. Hello, or 90 days. And remember where we saw him in chapter 2? An ash heap, festering sores, sick and grieved. And in these 25 chapters, there's no reference where Job showered, changed clothes, and was better. Not once did it mention he's doing better than what he did last week. Never says it. Never says it. So look at the nostalgia. Remember that now you're talking months and days in reference to years. Years of a young man growing up, years in marriage, years in raising grown children, years in raising an estate, years in establishing friendships, years in having an experience with God where it was unequivocal that God was watching over him. That's how he had all that he had. Remember Satan saying to God, yeah, Job ought to bless you with all the stuff you've blessed him with all of these years? And you bragging about Job? Not only was he blessed, but he had been blessed for a long time. And it is in that context of all of those years that he now puts the context of days and months. Can I talk plain? And sometimes we will let something that happens today almost negate everything that happened for the years before it. Out of all the times the Lord has blessed you and watched over you, now because he didn't show up yesterday, you're wondering if the Lord is with you. When you're sick and in a low place, that's a long day. Months. Now what has set in on Job, I wonder if I'll ever get well. I wonder will I ever stop itching? Will I ever get over my grief? You think, I wonder if I'll ever get anything back. You feel it? Then, oh, that I were in the months of old. Context. Not just months of old, but notice the context. As in the days when God watched over me. Tense. When God. He's saying that doesn't seem like God is watching over him now. Because the God that watched over him then protected him from all that he's going through now. You look, it's right there. It's right there. That's the context. I mentioned on Sermonic Moments Sunday, and you may want to do, and I like to take a pencil and a pen sometimes and just do some things. Notice the distinct times and in these verses, these chapters, or these verses 1 through 25. In these 25 verses, at least 52 times there's the utilization of when, I, and they. And when, that word is used more than any other word in this 29th chapter of Job. When. Let's look at some of them. We look at verses 3 to 10. The remembrance of blessings and honor. Remembrance of blessings and honor. When his lamp shone over my head, and by his light I walked through darkness. When I was in my prime. When the friendship of God was upon my tent. When the Almighty was still with me. When my children were around me. When my steps were washed with milk. I mean, life was easy. And the rock poured out oil for me, when the rock poured out for me streams of oil. When I went out to the gate of the city. When I took my seat in the square. Notice punctuation. There's a comma after all of these, not a period. This is ongoing. At the square, young men saw me and withdrew, and the aged rose up and stood. The nobles refrained from talking and laid their hands on their mouths. The voices of princes were hushed, and their tongues stuck to the roof of their mouth. Period. Remembrance of blessings and honor. When. You see that? That's an awfully long sentence. Job is reflecting, you see. He's reflecting. Then he picks up now remembrance of administering justice. You see all that he remembered when, wow. When God was into verse 4, when the friendship of God was, you see it? Upon my tent. When the friendship of God was upon my tent. Job is not feeling like God is with him. For when God was with him, you see all the things that happened. Blessings and honor. Good things happened and people respected him. Verses 11 through 17. Remembrance of administering justice. So there's this first, I was honored, I was respected, I had blessings. When the ear heard it, it condemned me. And when the eye saw it, it approved me. Because I delivered the poor who cried, the orphan who had no helper. The blessing of the wretch came upon me. And I caused the widow's heart to sing for joy. Notice, I put on righteousness and it clothed me. My justice was like a robe and a turban. I was eyes to the blind and feet to the lame. I was the father of the needy, and I championed the cause of the stranger. I broke the fangs of the unrighteous and made them drop their prey from their teeth. You see the optimum word that has changed here from when? When I. Job recounts. How can I say this? It's almost saying that when, and then I got results that shouldn't have been if God was still watching over my tent. Then he comes back and recounts, I don't understand how that could be, because I've shown favor and I've administered justice to those who could not help themselves. So the things that I was supposed to do to make things better, not for me, but for others, I did those things. And in doing those things, unspoken, there is that anticipation that I would reap some of the good for the good that I've done, just being plain. We oftentimes don't say that. But if we're honest with ourselves, we do expect God to be fair. Say that another way, Cliff Jones. We do expect the unwritten language of humanity in the world of spirits, of what goes around comes back around. In fact, the writer said, cast thy bread upon the waters, wisdom, and it shall return to thee. When I, ministering of justice, I want you to feel Job's mood. I, over and over, I did this. Who is Job saying this to? I'm arguing that he's not just talking to his friends, but the one who doesn't seem to be watching over his tent, God. In a way, he's reminding God, if God had forgotten, that he hadn't been a bad brother. That he's tried to do what was right. So you add this, stay with it, add this feeling on top of his physical condition. See how it's not adding up? And when it doesn't add up, notice the mental, and you can't write that. Notice the mental torment that he has to be suffering. Now you understood why he said, oh, how I long for the days of old. There it is. The days then. And I'm pushing close to my now. In this chapter, then. How you feeling? Let the text say what it says. Don't say, well, he didn't really mean that. Oh, yes, he did. He didn't really feel like that. Oh, yes, he was. And there's a careful lesson for us to learn. It's important for us to administer justice and do good to others. We should do that. But it does not guarantee nor gives us eternal coverage that we won't go through some, oh my goodness, moments. I can't believe this is happening to me. And it can go on for days and months. Now you can sing he's an on-time God. Yes, he is all you want. But that doesn't mean that's tomorrow or right now. Remembrance of blessings and honor. Verses 3 through 10. Remembrance of administering justice. Verses 11 through 17. Remember I said earlier, sometimes I wonder why we seem to repeat ourselves, and it has nothing to do with just being older. Job comes right back again with this theme of blessings and honor. When the recipients are they. Everything that Job did, he did for others. Come on, let's finish this chapter. Verse 18. Notice the feeling and notice the optimum words. When they. Then I thought. I shall die in my nest. In some texts say at a ripe old age. I thought that I was going to die at a ripe old age. And I shall multiply my days like the phoenix. That's a bird that they tell us, or the sand. It's something unknown. We didn't know its origin. You may want to just look it up, and you can get more detail with that. There it is. There it is. Verse 18, chapter 29. Then I thought, as I was living my life, I shall die at a ripe old age. The newer translation says, I shall die in my nest. I shall die in the multitude of my days, a ripe old age, like the phoenix. I thought my roots spread out to the waters, with the dew all night on my branches, refreshing. I thought my glory was fresh with me, and my bow ever new in my hand. I thought that. I thought that. And while I was thinking about that, verse 21, they listened to me and waited and kept silence for my counsel. See the they now? That comes back over to the verses 13 through 17. That's the they. After I spoke, they did not speak again. Why? And my words dropped upon them like dew. They accepted what I had to say. They waited for me as for rain. Honor. They opened their mouths as for the spring. They could hardly wait to hear me. I smiled. I smiled on them when they had no confidence in themselves. I smiled on them. In the light of my countenance, they did not extinguish. They. People respected me. People wanted to hear what I had to say. I thought that my latter days would be my best days at a ripe old age. Then he puts this caveat in this 25th verse, and I finish for this section for today. I chose their way. Okay, and notice, I didn't have to do what I did, but I did it. Notice how he frames this. I chose their way and sat as chief and lived like a king among his troops, like one who comforts mourners. I chose to sit with the poor, the powerless. As a king, I didn't have to do that. I could have spoken and had someone else do it. See? But I condescended. I didn't have to go there, but I went there. I listened to them. I helped them. I provided for them. And I thought my days were going to be longer than what they are. But here I am. That was then. Let us pray. Heavenly Father, thank you for being with us and guiding us along the journey. Thank you for the lessons, fresh lessons, as we learn from Cousin Job. Help us in our faith walk to become more like you in Jesus' name. Amen. Because of God's goodness and mercy, we've been able to come through another summer. This is September. 21st of the month will be the fall of the year. We're humbled and we're grateful for God's goodness, God's mercies. Please continue to stay in prayer for our nation, for our global situation. There's a lot before us. And yes, I want to encourage you to listen carefully to all that's being said over these next 6 or 7 weeks. And by all means, vote. Democracy is on the line. And I ask you, and I pray for you, and I pray for our nation, that God will be merciful and that we will have the right person to lead us in such a way that our country and our world situation will be bettered. It's just that critical. Thank you for your support for the church family and community. Yes, we're at 3301. It's been an exhilarating experience. We're doing all the daily activities and the Sunday activities except for worship. We're streaming live in our conference center and persons are taking advantage of that. But thank you for your understanding and being patient. It's really been enthralling to see you at 3301 in such large numbers. Thank you. Do ask your prayers and support for our church family and the special drive that we're having with our capital fund, and for each member to do what you can. There's a number hanging out there, but do what you can. Some can do more, some can do less, some can do nothing. But do what you can do and be prayerful. This weekend, homecoming weekend, we anticipate having a tailgate and car show, but that's going to be based upon the weather. So please notice our website, and we're going to get a blast out. So until you hear something, we're anticipating being able to have that. But again, it's dependent upon the weather on Saturday morning. We have to have good weather in order to do that. Prayer for our Bible study teacher and our revivalist. I'm excited about the young ministers that the Lord has prepared to come and to share with us. That's all that I need to say. May God ever bless you and keep you in his care, and enjoy each day for it is God's gift to you. This is Pastor Jones. Take care of yourself.